Attendees, how are we doing today? It's the third and final day, and we are in Vegas at the Mirage. We can certainly do better than that, so I'm going to ask one more time. How are we doing today? Great. Don't worry, I know it's almost lunchtime. By show of hands, which do you prefer, gold or Bitcoin? Gold? No hands for Bitcoin? Okay. Okay, we have 100% for gold, and we'll revisit the results at the end. So, today's keynote is titled How Bitcoin, Cryptocurrencies, DeFi, and How Cryptocurrencies, DeFi, NFTs will change global finance. On average, with a growth rate of 140% per year, countries, states, cities that put a portion of their treasury into Bitcoin will see a significant capital appreciation just by holding the asset and riding the wave and doing nothing. Rio de Janeiro put 1% of its treasury reserve in Bitcoin, and Miami City coin generated $4.3 million in a relatively short space of time. So, finance is evolving and changing the global face of things today. And we're just going to move on to the next slide. Bear with me. Okay. The reason for this diagram, the global reserve currency since 1450, is to show that on average, countries with reserve currency status held it for around 100 years. As a result, here in the US, we're nearing or surpassing 100 years, and several countries adjusting for the position and contending for the reserve currency hegemony. Obviously, the US is not going to take that and just give up easily, despite the exogenous forces and coalition of economies against it. So how does the US fight and retain as well as maintain global economic power? The answer will be revealed in the presentation, at the end of the presentation. Over here we have the derivatives of Bitcoin and their use cases. As all smartphones are derivatives of the iPhone, the 18,000 digital currencies are derivatives of Bitcoin. They exist because Bitcoin opened the door for them to exist. What does that mean? Before the iPhone launched in 2007, there was no other phone on the market with touch technology. Today, these crypto tokens are possible because of the advent of blockchain technology and Bitcoin leading the way. The cryptoverse and some of its important coins. As previously mentioned, there are 18,000 digital coins. Some are crucial, and others play a vital role. The rest are just there for now. In due time, the wheat would be separated from the chaff. Bitcoin's last coin will be mined in the year 2140. That is 118 years from now. The question is, what is its significance and who programs protocols that far out into the future? If you know the answer to this question, you will be in the top 0.00001% of the world. Some of the biggest financial names and companies are not even privy to that answer. Timeline, regulation, corporations, as well as macro events. Does anyone know what has appreciated 8.9 million% in the last 12 years? Of course, it's Bitcoin. Thank you. There's a lot of things going on the slide, so we're just going to focus on Q3. El Salvador will be offering its $1 billion volcano bond backed by Bitcoin in September. That will set off the biggest financial fireworks, as other countries will be doing the same, obviously with larger amounts as well. Hence, the writing is already on the wall. Just a few weeks ago, the IMF was discouraging countries from adopting Bitcoin because they want them to, get loans from them. A specific event occurred with Argentina and back in 2008, of which they took out a loan of $57 billion from the IMF, and IMF would like them to stay with them. The next slide, this is the investment of the decade. You could disagree, it's okay. As of December 20th, 2019, $1 invested in Bitcoin back in 2009 appreciated approximately to $90,000 by December 18, 2019. By comparison, $1 invested in gold appreciated to $1.34. So what stage are we in? To summarize, although we had 100% and one individual who was for gold, this is the time, I believe, we should get into Bitcoin, but that's my personal opinion. Just to clarify, Bitcoin is no longer where you see the highest returns. Last year, someone made $5.9 million from the purchase of $17 Shiba Inu. So Bitcoin is good. Bitcoin is not a stock. It is an asset which is going to be appreciating. It's all about timing and the right coin and experiencing that stratospheric movement in the right coin if you're able to get into it. So, which companies are in crypto? Warren Buffett once called Bitcoin rat poison, squared, and Charlie Munger likens crypto to venereal disease, unfortunately. Berkshire Hathaway, the company they both own, liquidated $3.1 billion of MasterCard and Visa, and they invested this money into Nubank, which is a Brazilian bank that allows customers to invest in crypto ETF, which is exchange traded funds. The next slide above is from inception to date. These are some of the most influential people who are active in the world of crypto. There are more, but these are just a few of them and some of the most influential individuals. How big is the cryptoverse and what is its impact? $2 trillion is the market cap. 1 billion is the users. As stated, the market cap is $2 trillion, and experts such as Raoul Pal, a former Goldman Sachs head honcho, is projecting for crypto to go from where it is right now, $2 trillion, to 200 to 250 trillion by 2030, which is just 8 years away from now. That is 100x. Even at 50x, which will be 100 million market cap, a $5,000 investment today will net you or appreciate to approximately 250K or 500,000 if it goes to the high market cap. Crypto instantaneously makes any one of us here and anyone out there achieve the returns that hedge fund managers would not even dream of or couldn't even dream of. So hedge fund managers make anywhere from around 7 to 10%. On a good week, you could make and you could triple that just by sitting back and having your funds, having your money well invested in the right cryptocurrencies. With returns like that, you tell me who's the hedge fund manager right now. So most of us have heard of the Great Resignation. And aside from making money online, we see the ads with people talking about Amazon, drop shipping, and a lot of other things. A lot of things are great to do. But in the past few years, we've had 100,000 new millionaires from crypto. If you know any other industry that has created that many millionaires in that short space of time, please let me know. And now we have the trillion-dollar whales are coming in. If the previous slides weren't exciting enough, perhaps this will be much more exciting and this will pique your interest. So we have BlackRock with 9.5 trillion AUM. We have Charles Schwab, 7.5 trillion AUM, Vanguard 7.2, and Fidelity 4 trillion. AUM is asset under management, just in case we have non-finance individuals watching us. So inflation, recession, and de-dollarization, that's a lot here, but we'll just focus on some few things. A global tectonic shift is happening, and the result of its confluence needs urgent attention. How so, you may ask? US debt is $30 trillion. I looked up the data going back to 1910, and the US has only ever paid down the debt twice. Not paid off, but paid down. So if you owe someone that much money in 111 years, this year marking 112th year, it becomes a little bit embarrassing and humiliating to owe that much money without paying it off, my personal opinion. 80% of the dollars in existence today and in circulation was printed just 26 months ago, starting January 2020. The US, EU, and UK are blocking $285 billion of Russia's funds. What does this say, and what does this signal? It means China, Japan, and some of UK and some of the countries who own US debt can decide, I want to ask for my money back. 1.2 trillion is China, $1 trillion is Japan. The US doesn't have this money to give, but when you block off people's treasury, it means you're telling people that you don't have the money, or if you do not do what we ask you to do, we may decide to take away some of your treasury, and that could be not so good for the US. Inflation, to me, is not about the CPI basket. No matter how we complain, everyone still has to eat. But what we do not factor into the inflation, into the CPI basket is public transportation, food, rent, which everyone pays on a monthly basis. And we know if you rent, how much rent has gone up in New York, in California, and in many other states in the US. Although hyperinflation is a psychological concept, which means there's no more faith in the currency of that country. If this becomes a perceived reality, unfortunately, it would affect the US reserve status. The next slide is financial institutions is DeFi. Financial institutions are definitely afraid of DeFi, which means decentralized finance. It basically cuts off the middlemen and women who provide higher yields and lower rates to customers. The $10 billion Bitcoin purchase. This slide says it all. What else is there to say? But let's go on a little bit. On the 22nd of March, Do Kwon, the founder of Terraform Labs, announced an increase in UST's reserve to $10 billion in a tweet. In plain English, it means Terra Labs is purchasing $10 billion worth of Bitcoin, and they've already purchased 1.5 to 3 billion as of March. So, crypto versus bank yields. Yesterday, a lady who was here and the panel here mentioned something about the banks disrespecting us and being highly disrespectful. And I think, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, that yes, banks are highly disrespectful with 0.30% to us giving them our money. Banks do not reward savings. Instead, our deposits are recycled for operations, and it ultimately goes to the bottom line of the bank. Financial institutions were worried that they were going to be annihilated, so they lobbied against BlockFi. This is a crypto company, and unfortunately, BlockFi had to pay $100 million in fine. That is a double-edged sword because it's a warning and a deterrent to others as well. And unfortunately, it was published on SEC's website on February 14th. I guess that was a way of the SEC showing some love to BlockFi on Valentine's Day. The next slide is NFT. What is an NFT? What does it do? And why should you care? The acronym stands for non-fungible token, and it's basically a unique digital representation of an asset. These are the types of NFTs and the properties of NFTs, and we can always come back to this. Non-fungible tokens, NFTs are not just for NFTs are not just for tech people and VCs. Everyone can change their lives or change their situation by going into NFT, not just for the monetary aspect, but by doing something which fundamentally changes them and adds value to other people as well. As we can see, Itzel, the lady on the top right or top left, her passion, I don't know if her passion was window cleaning, but that's what she was doing up until, I'm sorry, her passion was as an artist. She's an artist, but she was a window cleaner as well, high rise on skyscrapers. As a result of doing what she was doing, she ended up making, I can't remember how much, but she ended up making several $1 million in NFT. So someone who is a window high-rise cleaner ends up changing their lives in a short space of time, and now she can do what she loves to do and focus her life in that. And we have Amit Pal Singh, a 33-year-old from India. He made $1 million in Bitcoin during the pandemic. He didn't know what else to do. He decided, let me start creating some NFTs, and you need to check him out. He has some beautiful Matryoshka Russian dolls, which he created, and some other things he's done as well. But basically, $1 million in a few months is able, this windfall changes his life, and if he goes into a business, it changes the lives of his employees if he wants to set up a business. Beeple, you may have heard of him, perhaps you haven't. He's an individual who sold artwork for $100, and up until the NFT craze came about, his artwork one of them went for $69 million. You can check him out on the Jimmy Fallon Tonight Show. He was on live TV. And Sotheby's is also going in on this. So this is for big companies and everyone. Visa is getting into the action. The content speaks for itself. Any company worth its salt doesn't want to be left behind. So this is another slide which needs no introduction or explanation. You can have a read of it for a few seconds, and I'll just move on to the next slide. There's a lot going on here, but we'll focus on something which is the most important. So it's already happening. Virginia banks will soon be offering cryptocurrency custody services very soon. But you can take a look at the slide in case you have a question at the end for the point mentioned. How do we go from one Bitcoin, which is $40,000 today, to $500,000 in a very short space of time? Before I address that question, at the beginning of the presentation, I asked, does anyone prefer gold or Bitcoin? We had 100% for gold, which I wasn't expecting at a finance presentation, but there you go, things happen. Would you still like to the individual who said it, I'm not going to be looking at you right now, but would you still like to maintain your position with 100% gold? Or would you like to switch your position? You can tell us later on if you want to. Aside from Russia accepting Bitcoin for the sale of oil and gas, the step-by-step answer to this question will be on the last slide. So, one more thing. Since we're here in Vegas, it's only right that we go big. So let's deliver something exclusive together. May I read a quote or two, if you don't mind? Yes? Okay, thank you. Blockchain's role in one world currency order will facilitate the dollar being pegged to Bitcoin. Once this happens, from a defense and an offensive strategy perspective, it will solidify the dollar as the world reserve currency for at least the next 50 to 100 years. This ties back into one of the very first slides which I showed earlier on, which talks about countries having the reserve currency and having it for 100 years, of which the US is coming to an end right now. So with that said, thank you very much, Money 2.0 Conference, for the opportunity to deliver this presentation. And to you, the audience, thank you very much for listening. The answer to the previous question is in my upcoming book. So, today's presentation is only a snippet of what's to come. For the full juicy details, You will have to get a copy yourself, and there is a reward for everyone here today who's listening. Without saying much, perhaps there might be an NFT drop. NFT drop means a free giveaway of NFTs. Perhaps there is, perhaps there isn't. You'd have to find out after you subscribe. If you're interested in the presentation, please feel free to email me, and we can talk more about it. This is what the part 2 of the presentation would be. I know, for a room of which only one person is for gold, and most people did not talk about Bitcoin, whatever I'm saying here today might sound outlandish, but given all the facts and all the figures that I've shown previously, I guess there is some evidence to prove that we're going in this direction. Thank you very much. Questions, please.
Less gas fees and things like that that seem to be making a run at the infrastructure where all the dApps are going to run. How do you feel about some of the other blockchains and their chances of, I guess, upsetting or unseating Ethereum as the place where a lot of this happens?
Very good question. Algorand and the rest of the coins out there are not, in my opinion, my humble opinion, are not going to supersede or subsume Ethereum. Ethereum is digital oil, and Bitcoin is digital gold. I believe, is this the slide you were referring to, or the one after this one? Okay. Solana is fast. Yes, Ethereum is quite expensive, but Solana is much faster. Algorand is faster. A lot of these are fast. But the thing is, fast is good, yes, and less money is great for me to pay if I have NFTs to upload. But the thing is, Ethereum is where you have the most developers. It's kind of like, remember we had Microsoft come in with its own, Microsoft and I believe BlackBerry had their own store, the App Store. The reason they died is because there was no support for them. There was no developer support. All the developers are in Ethereum. The guy whom I mentioned earlier on, please check him out, Raoul Pal. He's a top head honcho in this game. He was at Goldman Sachs for many years. He's wealthy. He removed all of his money from Bitcoin and put a lot of his portfolio position into Ethereum. I'm not saying for that reason is why one should do it, but Ethereum is the lodestone on which everything else is being developed on. Thank you.
Forgive me, I'm kind of a layman on a lot of this, but my organization is considering using crypto to help facilitate international, some of our international commerce, using smart contracts in places where traditional finance tends to be a little bit difficult to interact. How do you, tokens such as Ripple, which are current, I believe Ripple's still in the middle of litigation, but that would kind of be the go-to cryptocurrency for the type of exchange that I'm referring to.
Okay.
And I know that there's some other Ethereum-backed tokens for that purpose. How do you see that playing a role in the future, and what are some things that could be worked on currently to drive that process forward?
I think you're being coy. You're not necessarily a layman if you know much about Ripple. Thank you for that question. Ripple is a phenomenal technology. Just a preface, Some people might see this as digital currencies. Bitcoin, I'll clarify, is not a currency. It sounds like a currency. That's what it was. That's what was mentioned years ago. It's not a currency. It's an asset. So if you put money there and it goes down and you think, oh, I've just lost my money. No, you haven't lost anything. Just hold on, sit down tight, don't do anything. It's going to go back up again. Going to your question, Ripple is phenomenal. And hopefully Brad Gallenhouse wins and the rest of his team. Those guys are doing something really phenomenal. Swift is I used to work in bank, and I've been working in banks for years. Swift is the back-end payment for transfer of dollars between countries and between banks. Ripple is going to subsume Swift. And sometimes when an incumbent is coming in, Swift has been around for, 40, 50 years or perhaps longer. So when you're coming in, people like to, unfortunately, gang up against you, and I believe that's why Ripple is having issues. But as you may have been following, Ripple has won a lot of its, has made headways, and I believe they will be really successful. And Ripple is inexpensive, but please go into it if you can. And there are other companies that provide payment transfer, but Ripple is payment for big banks and huge transactions. Any more questions?
You did such a good job explaining, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.